I just finished watching Squid Game Season 3, the final season of Squid Game, or just Squid Game 3, because I guess Netflix has a weird thing for naming seasons of television just by their numbers. Squid Game 3 is essentially the part 2 to Squid Game 2. If you didn't know, Squid Game Season 2 is really filmed to be one big season, but Netflix thought, hey, why not split that thing in half and make 2 seasons of television, because guess what, guys? Money! And what we have here is a final season of television that ends up being a complete and utter disaster. And one of the most disappointing watches of this year by far. Probably the most disappointing one. So I'm going to get into why. Now, if you haven't watched Squid Game Season 1 or Season 2, spoilers are ahead. I'm going to be spoiling some things from both of those things, but I'm assuming everybody watching this video has probably at least watched those two, or you know what Squid Games is. And I want to start off this video by saying I absolutely loved Season 1 of Squid Game, and I really loved Season 2 of Squid Game, despite the fact that Squid Game as a whole, as a property, as a franchise, has really become something much, much larger than the actual show that is on Netflix. It's become a It's become a reality show on Netflix. It's become a Mr. Beast thing, right? Squid Game has become this cultural phenomena, and it's been treated almost the same way that, like, The Boys makes fun of how we treat superhero stuff. But despite all of that commercialization, the actual base Squid Game show has always still kept itself to being this deep character drama, following this character Jihan and his journey to trying to stop the games, and the trauma and the tragedy that occurs in the games. This is a character study, it is a drama, and it's always felt self-contained even outside of the phenomenon that the show has actually become. And my main issue with Season 3 is the show sort of loses that. It stops being this deep, well-written, well-thought-out drama that is telling a contained and complete story, and it ends up becoming something that feels more commercialized and more Netflix and Disney Star Wars-y. It feels like it's trying to expand rather than just tell a coherent and good narrative that has a start and a finish. And that is what makes this show and this season such a mess. Because you have a lot of threads from Season 2 that were set up. You have this story with the frontman and Jihan. You have Jihan in the game, and how is that going to resolve? You have all of these characters who we've grown to love, and we have this expectation that this season will turn out a little bit differently than Season 1, where Season 1, we watch the games go through to their end. This season, there are a lot more threads at play where it's like, okay, there's going to be a different kind of conclusion here. There are going to be more revelations revealed, and through those revelations and character journeys, there will be a different sort of conclusion to Season 1. And one of the issues with the show is that it ends up going down a very predictable and safe path with how the games play out, how a lot of the characters end up going down their arcs. A lot of it just happens in a way that doesn't feel earned, but feels guessable. Like, it felt so easy. Almost like the guy that has been writing the show didn't write this, that this was written by AI or the board of Netflix writers that write all of their terrible straight-to-Netflix, straight-to-streaming movies. It's my biggest issue with this season, and it does have its moments. We do get some very interesting games that are definitely my least favorite of the whole series. None of the games or the sequences here ever have as much tension, as much suspense as any of the games in Season 1 or Season 2, but they still tend to be pretty entertaining. I mean, it's still Squid Games. You still get really badass character moments. You still get really sad and traumatizing character deaths, some of which really did feel shoehorned in and just kind of thrown in, and they didn't make much sense to me. Others felt a lot heavier. There are still heavy character deaths here. None of them anywhere near as heavy as the character deaths that we got in Season 1. They didn't feel as deserved here because they were predictable. You saw them coming. And what the season eventually builds to, the themes here, I understand what they were going for thematically with Jihan's story and this sort of ideological difference that he has with the frontman and with the games, but I don't think it ever reached a place that actually felt surprising or interesting. It just went somewhere that felt, yet again, predictable. The show, about halfway through the season, introduces this new sort of, I guess you can call it a MacGuffin. It's this new plot device that enters into the story that is so shocking and so sort of sickening, and that ends up becoming the major sort of thing throughout the rest of the series, is how do we take this thing and protect it? And just as soon as that thing was introduced into the story, it was pretty clear how things were going to end up wrapping themselves up. And then they do. They wrap themselves up exactly how you would imagine, and it just... I felt empty. I felt empty watching it, and I felt like I needed to feel more. Also, I don't like how the games were really treated in this season. When I say the games, I mean the Squid Game, the company, whatever's doing this to these people. There always felt like there was this moral barrier that the Squid Games were able to get away with, where at the very least they could say, hey, these people are choosing to be here. So what we're doing really isn't that bad because they want to be here. That is the point. This is not that bad. We're giving them all a choice. This is a fair game. It's almost like Saw. If you watch the Saw films and it's like, hey, yeah, is Jigsaw a dick? Kind of, but in a way, he has this morality to him where he's like, this is fair. I'm giving them a choice. And this season, they throw in this plot element that I talked about before that immediately makes it so it's like, no, these games are pure evil. Like, there is no morality in this choice right here. They are forcing something that is blatantly evil, and it took me out of the entire story, and it stopped allowing me to really buy into this sort of philosophical difference between Jihan and the frontman. Now it doesn't matter, because the philosophical difference, I mean, clearly one side of that philosophy is pure evil, and the other one is right. And at least in Season 2, you can understand the opposite side of that coin, and here I just can't. Now, the biggest sin of this season is its finale. Its finale, which to me just did not work at all. It played itself very similarly to the finale of Season 1, where you have a big confrontation between two characters, and whereas in Season 1, where you have this big build-up to Sang-woo kind of becoming this sort of evil guy that is willing to do anything to get that money, he needs that money, it feels so tragic and so terrible, and you've watched him turn into this thing throughout this whole season. It is earned. Here, it doesn't feel earned at all. What they end up doing just comes out of nowhere. It felt like they needed a character to become Sang-woo, and it just does not work. And then the show gets to its real ending, which is not an ending. If this is a series finale, it is a poor series finale because we don't get answers. We don't get backgrounds on some of the characters we want backgrounds for. We don't get a conclusion to Squid Games. Instead, what we get is an introduction and a preview into David Fincher's Squid Game American show. Because what we're going to get now is the Squid Game MCU, instead of just having a contained full story for the Korean show. And now, I'm just not interested anymore. I was so interested. I loved Season 2, loved Season 1, and I was so excited to see how they concluded the story. But now that they're making it clear that no, this is not a self-contained, character-driven story. No, this is going to be a gigantic, franchisable, marketable thing. I just don't care anymore. I don't really want to watch the American version, and not excited for it, because I just don't think it'll ever be able to capture what this show was able to capture in previous seasons. This organic thing that wasn't meant to be a giant sort of commercialized show. The one big compliment I will give this season, though, the performances, as usual, were unbelievable. There is not a weak performance in this show. Everybody delivers, even when the writing is not very good. Overall, Squid Game Season 3 to me was just not very good and a massive, massive disappointment. So I'm going to give it a 1.5 out of 5, which is brutal, because I think I gave Season 2 a 5 out of 5. Wow, what a step down. Hey guys for watching. Make sure to like this video, subscribe for more, turn notifications. I'll see you in the next one.